Hey guys, so this is really awkward for me to film, but I'm in my fucking wits end at this point. So sorry. Let me see if I can zoom in. So I know I look like death. I reached out to Uncle Richard recently. I reached out to domestic violence shelter. My entire family knows what's been going on, and it's been a living nightmare. So back in late August of last year, I lost my job because I took 2 days off from work. Charlie was getting married in Wyoming, and Aaron, I missed so much of things that were going on with my family that there was no way in hell I was going to miss another event. Despite the fact that I knew my job was going to be on the line, I'd already put in requests for 2 days off. I was pretty much, it's been a while since we talked, but pretty much single-handedly running a 150-bed homeless shelter out in Point Loma, with a bunch of convicted felons that tried to get me fired many times over. But towards the end, I was pushing myself beyond what I could even do. Along the way, I injured my right hand pretty bad, but still kept working. But come time for Charlie's wedding, I was exhausted. I was trying to do the work of many people several times over. Made efforts to contact the CEO, Bob McElroy, to try to remedy some pretty serious problems within the shelter. We were running out of blankets, so people discharging from psych facilities or coming straight off the street or wherever, hospitals, were being intaked and being assigned a bed. And there's so much corruption within the company with all my colleagues stealing. We wouldn't have adequate supplies. So they'd literally get a bed with no pillow sometimes, or no blankets. So I did everything I could to run donation drives and did a bunch of stuff, despite the fact that I took a pay cut to work there. At any rate, also it just happens to be a block from where I was raped and robbed, God, ages ago, around the time of my bike wreck, a year after the bike wreck. And then just a block away from that is Alpha Project, and that's the last place that I worked. Shortly after that, about a month later, I was driving down West Point Loma and Sunset, headed towards OB, and this chick ran a red light and slammed right into my car. She wasn't really paying attention. I knew the damage to my car was pretty bad. I pulled off from the gas station, and I could literally feel the organs of my car tracking, which is the worst fucking feeling ever. And the girl, she was such a nitwit. It was, a 4-point stop, plenty of traffic, and she looked like she was so freaked out she didn't even know. You pull off your car, you exchange information. I was really wary of her, so I started filming her car to make sure she didn't take off. She ended up giving me her insurance information, but long story short, she ended up claiming that she didn't run a red, that I ran a red. I only had collision. I could no longer afford full-blown insurance because I took a pay cut working at Alpha, and a lot of my money that I worked and earned, I put right back into the shelter. And that was my own choice. But anyway, so being that I only had collision, my insurance, they did their investigation. They said, we're on your side. They didn't increase my rates, at least. But they also were like, well, since you only have collision, we're not responsible for the damages. So right after that, my dad grabbed my car keys, and he got my car fixed right away for whatever reason. It bothered him. My dad's weird. He automatically assumed that I was responsible. I understand, track histories, they can haunt you for a long time. I spent more time out there, running amok, part of a lifestyle where I put my family through all sorts of stuff. But, that was 15 years ago. That was a long time ago, and it took me a lot of time to get to the place where I'm at now, where, I worked my ass off. I went through eating disorder treatment twice. I made it through a rape and robbery trial. The guy got 12 years prison sentence, and he was released last year. Once I realized I had PTSD, I sought out the help of a specialist. Went through rehab a couple times. Went through all 12 steps with AA, and etc., etc. You know, I've seen therapists for years to try to make sure I'm working through the things that are holding me back, because, you know, it took a tremendous amount of pain on my part and effort before I was able to see things more clearly. Being that, you know, your dad died as a drug addict and your mom's, you know, I don't know if she's an active alcoholic or not. You had firsthand experience being on the more victim side of addiction, but I've gotten experience both. But what I can say for sure is that it's like a blind spot. I could see how family would take it personally. You're not there for holidays, events, whatever. And it's got to be horrible. People start to take it personally. And then for the drug addict, it's a blind spot as well, because it's like being on a train in which you're supposed to be the conductor and the train's headed right towards a brick wall. You've already hit things back there and they didn't feel good. And yet, despite your best efforts, it's like someone's locked you out and you're banging on the door and you're trying to break in, and you'd see it's not heading anywhere positive, and yet for whatever reason you can't fucking hit the brakes. You can't access that front box that'll allow you to regain control. And it's like all the while you can look out the window and see all these people going, shit, no, please don't. And it's like, I saw you way back there. And yet, in the moment, you have blinders on. It's, you know, we're biological beings. I look at addiction from more of a scientific perspective, meaning like people can become dependent on a system or a substance. They can become dependent on a hobby or a habit. You know, take compulsive gambling, shopping. We're a biological species. It produces a chemical reaction in our brain. And people are going to reach for whatever they need to reach for if, let's say, their dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine levels, things that make you feel happy, they get hijacked, they're compromised. You know, people that are in survival situations are going to reach for whatever's at their disposal. I don't believe in bad or good choices. I don't beat myself up for things that are in the past anymore. I'm very much aware of things that I did, and I don't contend with the idea that, you know, I gain a bunch of weight because I'm a bad person. I think it's ludicrous that more people aren't aware. There's chemists in labs, and they put things into food to make sure that they're addictive. Processed foods were foods that were never meant to go in our bodies, but they create a chemical reaction, and they create dependency. I was addicted to processed foods. I still struggle with food stuff. But to say that somebody that's 70 pounds has an eating disorder, but someone that's 1,200 pounds is just lazy and needs to shoot up Ozempic is ludicrous to me. You know, a lot of my family, they want to still put me in this box because of choices that I made or decisions I made, but they don't always consider the choices that I had. Not to mention, if you're in a vulnerable place in your life and someone introduces something into your environment, bottom line is that you change up the variables in the environment, we're more likely to pick something up if it's right there at our disposal. There are certain drugs that weren't around when Shelly and Heidi were in school. There were drugs that weren't around when I was in school. But things are different when, you know, you're 16 or 15. Spring Valley, Taylor's boyfriend's dad was the one that ended up handing us off a meth pipe. As an adult, Taylor and I, we were adventure thrill seekers. She had her little group at La Jolla High, but all I had was Taylor, and La Jolla High was hell for me. The amount of bullying that I went through and all that is something I'll never forget, and it's something I barely survived out of. But anyway, I no longer contend with a lot of these beliefs that a lot of people still propagate in this culture. So, you know, just to throw it out there, I also just want to mention I love you. I miss you a lot. There have been various things that the family have said regarding you and how you're doing. I can't even wrap my mind around the fact that you have so many kids. It's a trip, and I miss you a lot. I miss our family. Sorry. I just miss the days when, like, Grandma was still alive and we would make efforts. Like, I forget that our extended family even in San Diego anymore. I don't ever see Uncle Richard. I know that at certain points of time, Charlie, Vanessa, Shelley were getting together with Blake and Spencer. And, I was cut off from a lot of this stuff regarding things that were happening within the family because I was living in North County, it felt like so further away because of traffic and being busy with work and whatever, but it just kills me. I know that Uncle Richard still has people over at the house, but it's just not the same, and I wish we still had that dynamic. I really do. It just seems like everyone kind of lives their own life, and it makes me sad sometimes when I think about it. When I, see you guys went to Missouri or whatever, and it is what it is. But anyway, so just going back to right after the car accident, my dad he got my car fixed immediately. I was assumed to be the responsible party. He assumed that I must have done something wrong, but he didn't really question it. But the bottom line is that the girl lied, and I'm stuck with a car that was parked out front, perfect condition. My dad got fixed. It was about $3,500. And he pretty much grabbed my keys and was like, I'll give you your car back when you pay for the damages. I'm like, oh, great. But all of a sudden I had all this free time. As you know, the bike wreck that happened like over 10 years ago caused significant damage to my nose, but a lot of people don't know is that it was a head-on thing. I suffered of Lafort 2, meaning my face got caved in. So I have plates in my face, I have screws, and I had teeth literally scattered on the sidewalk. I bit my tongue in half, which is kind of badass. But long story short, after the bike wreck, my maxillofacial surgeon pretty much warned me. He's like, we're going to wire your teeth in. They may make it, they may not. There's going to be dentists that say, like, just rip them all out. They've already been through significant trauma. The impact, the brunt of the force of the sidewalk hitting your teeth means they're probably not going to make it. So might as well just, cut out the bullshit, rip them all out, and replace them with brand new teeth. Then the alternative was, well, let's just see how they do over time. They might make it, they might not, they might start falling out, but you can treat it as it comes, and some maybe will make it, well, others won't. Well, shit, it took them 2 years just to put my nose back on my face. So that was priority number one. And at the end of the day, like, it was never even a discussion to replace all your teeth after having had plates and stuff put in. It's not just implants, it's called restorative work. I didn't never even bother looking into it. I knew my dad wasn't going to pay for it, and it wasn't really a priority. I just figured, fuck, I'm not going to go through a bunch of major surgery. I just finally have a nose that won't fall off in the shower. That's awesome. But I was like, fuck it, let's just see how it goes. Why would I assume that my dad's going to pay for major restorative work first off, and then second, you never know. They might make it, they might not. In the past 10 years, I probably had, 12 root canals, if not more, plus teeth extracted, teeth that were root canals that ended up being retreats, which I don't even know how it's possible, but a lot of shit, ton of money of restorative work, and we're talking like somewhere between $40,000 and $60,000. And regardless of all this work that I had done, about 3 years ago, I was working as Sharp as a patient transporter. I just started working there, brief stint. Ugh. Medicine, law, not for me. But anyway, I was literally like at a thrift store in the parking lot, Ambets. Yeah, I know you like a good discount too. And I was holding a Sharpie in my mouth, and I was going to write on Post-it just things real quick that I might want to keep my eyes open for, things I really need. I need to get scrubs. That was my number one thing. Next thing I know, like, there's a rush of blood everywhere. Blood just shooting out of my mouth, getting all over my clothes. I was like, oh my God, what the fuck? I immediately pulled the mirror down, and I realized my front teeth, this one, just completely fell out. And in a panic, I started looking for my tooth, tried to hold pressure where it was bleeding, and holy shit, you haven't really lived until you've seen like an entire tooth, but with the root, they're way longer than what you would expect. So, but I was freaking out. I just started working at Sharp. I was freaking out, and I couldn't get the bleeding to stop. I was just like, oh, what the fuck just happened? Tooth looked perfectly fine. And so once I got the bleeding to kind of stop, I looked at the tooth. I'm like, maybe I can just shove it back in there. So I desperately tried to like shove the thing back in there. There was no way. There was no way it was going back in. So I called Heidi. I was crying hysterically. She ended up reaching out to my dad. My dad ended up calling me or texting me and just saying like, look, like whatever needs to be done, like I'll help you fix it. Don't worry so much about it. I'll help you. So, it was like after that, my teeth just started breaking off like crazy. This is like years after I got out of the meth scene. Many years, at least 8, 10. And all of a sudden, I think it's a bunch of different contributing factors. Having a history of an eating disorder that can really eat away at your teeth, the enamel, possible vitamin deficiency, gastric bypass surgery will make it so that you're supposed to take vitamins for the rest of your life. I am not good about taking calcium. I stopped doing it a while ago. And then, meth is a toxin, is a poison. It can weaken the bones. It can weaken all sorts of parts of the body. And so between, and the bike wreck, head on, trauma to the face, blunt force to the teeth. So I've considered the different variables in all these things. Either way, my teeth just started falling apart. Literally, I had one crown that was loose on a tooth that was a root canal. My dumbass went to my dad's medical cabinet, found the next door neighbor's old dental thing, including the Sharp tooth cleaning kit thing, like the ones they use when you get your teeth cleaned at the dentist. And I'm like, well, since my teeth are like in bad shape, I want to take extra good care of them. I don't really know what the fuck I'm doing. I literally like pulled the entire fucking tooth out. And looking back, I wish I would have gone to Mexico right away. And I'm sure they could have like glued it in. I don't remember how it was my fault. But when I went to my dentist, they ended up just saying, there's no way you can fix that. They ended up taking the tooth and keeping it. And so next thing I knew, I like looking in the mirror, it seemed like overnight I looked like a fucking jack-o'-lantern. And what people don't realize is that when you have missing teeth or broken teeth, food becomes like weapons. Like tortilla chips, anything sharp can literally really hurt. It goes straight into the areas wherever there's no teeth. And getting ready for Charlie's wedding, I ended up chancing it. I got my dad to write a doctor's note to try to cover my ass. I was really stressed out about having to pick between keeping my job or going to my brother's wedding, but I was overworking an Alpha project. I was starting to like really go downhill as much as I was taking on way too much. I was drained to the max. I was pushing myself too hard, doing donation drives, doing the work of multiple people, and I was getting no support from the higher ups. So I was pretty mad. I quit before they even fired me. But sure enough, like I went to Charlie's wedding, and just getting for the wedding reception, I was brushing my teeth, and I lost the other half to another front tooth. And so right after the wedding, it was cool. I hadn't been on a plane in like 20 years. So my family is like, oh, they're world travelers, and Shelly has her favorite South American country where they ride special donkeys and whatever. But I'm like, yes, I get to go on a plane, and weird. I don't know if like I'll need a seatbelt extender or anything, but we'll see. Like I was just excited. I wanted to get out of San Diego. It's been forever. And just to not miss out on this big thing. I mean, again, there's certain things I can never change about things that have already passed. Missing graduations and putting my family through whatever it is that they went through. They'd have to speak on that. But I did them harm, and I was willing to chance my job. And sure enough, when I got back from Montana, I went to work. I cleared things with HR. They said the doctor's note was fine. And when I showed up, they had my termination papers in hand. And yeah, so that was that. Then girl ran the red. I lost my car. And so all of a sudden I had all this open time available and all these broken teeth. And so between that and the pressure I was getting from my dentist and my other surgeons, the doctors I've seen over the years for my teeth, my dad knew that I was supposed to get restorative work like ages ago, but my parents are very weird. Not sure if you're aware, but you know, the next door neighbor who was a hoarder, she became very good friends with my mom. My parents did this like extreme makeover bullshit house edition where they try to help her. I'm saying help her because their house is falling apart. I wouldn't get into that. Their foundation is sinking, and it was a great way for them to distract from focusing on their own problems. But this woman, Mrs. Green, you know, she was older, and my mom actually became really close with her. And along the way, my mom looked out for her, but before she died, she got a savings account for my mom. And when she died, she also left my mom half of her property and a bunch of other stuff. I don't even know how much money she gave her, but to try to make it so that she was independent from my dad. Because I didn't realize this, but my dad has been a major asshole to my mom as far as being really secretive about their financial stuff. And if he was meeting with grandma to talk about money stuff or real estate, when my mom would ask about financial stuff, my dad would say, you know, mind your own fucking business. And so Mrs. Green kind of tried to be supportive, and I, you know, appreciate that she looked out for my mom. At any rate, I ended up finally putting pressure on my dad and persuading him to get on board with finally helping me finance this major restorative work. I can't remember who I went through, but I got a referral to, I needed an oral surgeon and a prosthodontist. The way Mexico does restorative work versus the United States is different, because in Mexico, you can be one surgeon and do both two different jobs. They train you in one, whereas in the US, it is two separate doctors. Either way, we consulted with two people that came recommended from my dentist, Dr. DeMeyer, and the estimate was 80 grand. And so, even though my family has the money, you know, my dad still has the properties that he shares with, you know, your mom and Uncle Rich and all that, I just felt a tremendous amount of guilt for all the times that my dad already helped me. And despite the fact that, you know, it was something that happened that was outside my control. I mean, I was literally on my way to go meet my sponsor on my bike when my bike fell apart. But, you know, shit happens. And so I told my dad, I said, you know what, that sounds ridiculous. Like, you have people, you have doctors, just like you've done for Charlie when he needed shoulder surgery. My dad sought out the advice of his friends, and he ended up, you know, paying to have the surgeon who works on the Padres players fix my brother's shoulder. Shelly, she needed, she had torn ACL, Vanessa, same thing. And so I trusted my dad, and I said, why don't you ask around and see if there are any surgeons that can do this in TJ? And so he did. And so he found the name of this doctor. His name was Dr. Bogren. We set up a consultation, and off we went. Initially in the US, they were trying to lay out a year-long treatment plan, doing a shit ton of different work, possibly needing gum grafting surgery and bone grafts, where literally, like, the area underneath the gum line, there's bone that's supposed to be there. If you don't have adequate bone, there's nothing for the post that then goes, the implant is the post, and then they put a crown on top. So I didn't have adequate bone. I had bone loss, so they were gonna have to do bone grafts and a whole shit ton of different work. And all the while, and different from regular implants again, because my nose, if you notice, this nose is made out of cartilage. Sorry, I'm awkward. Cartilage from a rib. And this is where they try to take skin from my cheek to fix the missing part of my nose that literally the sidewalk broke off when my front wheel came off my bike. And then they ended up doing a paramedian forehead flap using skin from up here. But my nose is not very flexible. Yeah, I've always wondered what would happen if, like, someone punched me in the face. hopefully that doesn't happen, but if it does, it's probably because I fucking deserved it. But for them to like put my face back together, they had to put things a certain way. So can't just do regular implants because they could hit something, that is attached to my nose and cause me to stop breathing. So we did a consult with this doctor, Dr. Boger, and he seemed like he knew his shit. He was very charismatic, very charming. My dad loved him. He was very, very charismatic, seemed very trustworthy, carried himself really well. And so we went over a treatment plan, and his was, I think, only 6 months, which I guess should have been a red flag looking back, but I'm just like, whatever, I want to get this shit over with. My dad had been researching. After I mentioned it, Aaron, to my dad, like, hey, I should probably get this work done, my dad started researching all the different types of teeth there are. There's Snap-on, then there's so many different things you can do to your teeth. And my dad started researching them all. By the time we started doing these consultations, I just wanted to slap some fucking teeth back in my mouth. It wasn't about like looking like a movie star. I wanted it to be done with so I could, say goodbye to root canals and looking like a crackhead whore. And it started to become embarrassing going on public, but more importantly, like, it was affecting my everyday life. Like, I couldn't eat a lot of foods, and it seemed like every single time I was eating something or just brushing my teeth were falling apart. So the beginning first few months of surgery were rough as all hell, and there were a lot of red flags. My dad would not let me drive my car. He decided that he was going to drive me to surgery, and he really liked the surgeon, but there were certain things that were happening from the beginning that I questioned. For example, I've had a tooth extracted. When you get a tooth pulled, they extract it, and then immediately after, part of the aftercare is you bite on gauze because it stops the blood. It gets the blood to clot. Otherwise, it gets really pussy. It's disgusting. You get like gum matter. Things can go in there, debris, and more importantly, like, it'll just keep bleeding. It won't heal as quickly. And so I think my first surgery, I don't even know how long some of the surgeries were. Maybe times we'd get to the office at 8 a.m. and be there. We'd be leaving the office when the sun was already set. These were arduous surgeries, and one surgery would be like 3 root canals, 2 extractions. Like, hey, we're gonna work on this lower portion of your jaw today. That's gnarly. That's fucking gnarly. If you've ever had a root canal, one in itself is hard to recover from. This guy didn't prescribe me painkillers. I told my dad from the get, there's something off here. Everyone gives painkillers after major surgery. And he said, don't worry about it. I had plenty at home. I said, and he didn't give me gauze. Like, we need to bring our own gauze? There's no aftercare instructions? Like there's something off. And my dad's like, oh, next time I'll just make sure I bring painkillers and we'll bring our own gauze. And so I'm okay, whatever. I'm grateful for my dad's help. He's helped me do this. I've already, put him through so many situations in which I was in Poway or whatever, had to get to work, but, had the dentist tell me, oh, looks like you need a root canal. And I'd have to get my dad on the phone and like basically beg him to help me pay for whatever wasn't covered by my dental insurance. And he would begrudgingly eventually agree for the most part. So I was just like, whatever, it's TJ. I don't know how this shit works. I've never had all my teeth ripped out to have him fixed, but I'm like, let's just get this over with. Like, let's move forward. I feel like it was maybe the 5th surgery. Oh, and then, so I'd go through one surgery. One surgery would be 3 root canals, 2 extractions. And the reality was, when I would get home, my dad maybe would give me like a pain pill. And then and that's when the Lidocaine wore off, and it was miserably, horribly painful. And my face was swollen like a chipmunk. I would ice my face, but you better believe, like, I wasn't interested in eating anything. I had all these holes everywhere. It's disgusting. And all I was trying to do is like survive and not think about the pain. And I was having surgery every 2 weeks, like at that level of intensity. And after I think this second surgery, I told my dad, I said, no, like this is not cool. We're doing too much too fast. This is hell. Like I just barely began eating again. I can barely eat soft food. Like we're talking yogurt, maybe string cheese. And it hurt so much. I tried chewing on this side, but just when I was regaining the ability to eat food again, my dad was like, nope, like let's just get it over with. And the doctor was right there with him. And so I was going through major surgery every 2 weeks. And I want to say it was like maybe my 5th or 6th surgery. For some reason, my dad let me drive the car down to Mexico. He let me drive myself. Mind you, he had a tracker on the car. He put a tracker on my phone. And he was monitoring my driving the entire time. My dad started doing some psycho shit that he never did, Aaron, never did to anyone else in the family. But this whole bike wreck surgery thing, him agreeing to help me, set something fucking psychotic off in my parents that literally is like a monster that has lying dormant for 20 years or so. It brought out like an evil side, an abusive side. I'll just say it like that. But anyway, he let me go drive myself to the surgery, and I don't remember what I was having done, but the doctor, his disposition towards me changed. He was less friendly. He wasn't as charming as he was when my dad was there, and I noticed that. But he did lidocaine in different areas of my mouth, and he started working on me. And I was like, ow, ow. I put my hand up. And he's like, what's the problem? I said, I can feel the drilling. Can you give me more lidocaine? Oh yeah, okay, fine. Yeah. He did more lidocaine, Aaron, and then he like immediately went on drilling. And I figured maybe it's supposed to be fast acting. I don't really know. I've been through painful shit, but I stopped him, I think, 1 or 2 more times. Told him, hey, I can still feel it. Like it's really hurts. And so he did more lidocaine, and then immediately started drilling again. I communicated it him in both English and Spanish. And towards the end of that surgery, like I was in so much pain. All I was trying to do was picture like the ocean. This guy was such a piece of shit. He was such a piece of shit. I had tears running down my face, and I can't remember what I was doing. I don't know if I was moving too much or something, but I remember him saying in Spanish to the fucking assistant, she's tired, we should stop and finish the work on another day. And this motherfucker had bonding agent all over my face. He left it all over my clothes. There was glue like everywhere. And I was just left there in like a blood-soaked gown. And I'll never forget it. He stopped. Instead of helping me out of the chair, he went and he took a wipe and he started wiping off the ground instead of helping out of the chair. And so it was late when I got home. I was in so much fucking pain. But when I talked to my dad about it in the morning, I'm pretty sure his immediate response was, no. After that, he was like, oh, well, I'll make sure I go with you next time. It will never happen again. So shortly after that, there were other things that were starting to happen that were not making sense. And when I brought it up to my dad, and I was just like, but what about this? This is weird. They took out almost all of my top teeth. This doctor created something for me that's called a prosthesis. It's basically something that's supposed to be a temporary thing that you can't chew on, but it looks like natural teeth. Otherwise, who wants to look like a toothless freak? Not me. And so I started expressing concern to my dad about certain things I was noticing that were really sketchy, and my dad was very angry. He would not let me. Oh, and at a certain point in time, my mom had to leave town. My cousin on my Mexican side of the family was murdered. Granted, he was involved with the cartel. I'm not sad about that. My mom had to go to Mexico for a funeral. This kid that I grew up with, that was like Charlie's age, he beat his wife to death. So, good riddance as far as I'm concerned. My mom's super hyper focused on it. But anyway, she left, was out of town for like 4 months. And this is when all the surgery stuff happened, and my mom's whole attitude throughout this thing was, oh, it's between you and your father. But my mom is a weirdo. She's a weirdo. Ever since I moved back to their house like 3 years ago after Mike and I broke up, when I was working at Poway Unified still, just their dynamic is so strange. They're such toxic, dysfunctional people. The way they communicate. My mom was making me change clothes in the garage because she said I was waking up, being too loud. Wasn't allowed to shower at night. Like, kitchen was off limits. And so I was like, whatever, not a big deal. Like, I made food, prepped my meals in the garage, kept most of my groceries in the garage, just changed out of my clothes. Sometimes I'd get off work, though, and they wouldn't sweep the kitchen. I'd get fucking glass cemented in my feet. Have to do surgery on myself after work. But whatever. But, you know, my mom comes off as a really, like, amicable, social person, but my mom is very two-paced. Both my parents have a lot of damage that you can't really see visibly, but since my dad retired, like, he's had health problems, but he's been lost, not knowing what to do with his time, bored. My mom, they both had, like, two best friends that, for whatever reason, my mom was best friends with two chicks, Luz Marta and Celia Henley. And they stopped being friends, so she doesn't really have friends. My dad, Jim Poirier, Jay Matzinger. Jay Matzinger is in a skilled nursing facility. He is in Del Mar, but his family stepped in after he fell and hurt something. And when my dad made efforts to go visit him, they pretty much were like, if you try to visit, we're going to sue you in court because you're the one that told him to get the COVID vaccine. So my dad literally didn't fight back at all, Aaron. He's just like, well, this is someone that was there for my dad and my whole family, like our whole lives. Someone that came over all the time, like would you know, super socially awkward. I'm sure you remember Jay. But he's also super autistic. Now that I was a behavior specialist, I can identify certain things in people. He's definitely like on the Asperger scale. He always remembered our birthdays when we were kids, would always come over and call us on our birthdays. And so that was one of my dad's best friends. The other best friend, Jim Poirier, my chemistry teacher, also my dad's accountant. And I think he actually originally started out being best friends with Uncle Richard, but for whatever reason, you know, really, really nice guy, super charming, charismatic. My dad would never go visit them. They would come to the house. And my dad, even then, my dad is he's burned out. To his credit, though, at least he's a dick and he's honest about it. You know, he's kind of an equal opportunity dick. Versus my mom, who will, so nice to me. And, oh, that bitch, she's racist, whatever. She's two-faced, she's damaged, man. And I get to observe it now with a new set of freshly woken eyes. You know, I had to become a lot more aware of my own behavior, my own emotions, not just for therapy and for health, but and working with the kids that I worked with, kids with autism, kids with behavior disorders, severe behavior disorders. I gained a lot of awareness, and I made a lot of efforts to change a lot of things about the way that I live my life now versus how I used to live them. It's taken me a shit ton of effort and time to get to this shut up time in my life. You know, socioeconomically, I'm not doing well, but I think it's important to gauge one's progress based on where you know you've been, as opposed to comparing what you think you have going on and then assuming everybody else has a picturesque life, because you never know what other people's damage is. So I try not, if I were to, you know, compare myself to what Shelly and Heidi are doing, and, you know, I threw away a good amount of my years because I was caught up in a blind circus maze of mirrors. The addiction thing was not fun, but there's a lot of stuff that took so much effort on my part to get used to. So before working for Poway Unified, just to throw this out there, before that, Aaron, like the longest job I had was working 1.5 years as a freshman at Chateau La Jolla. After that, like, I could not keep a job, and I cared about keeping a job for more than a year. And so when I lived in Poway, like, it really forced me to grow up, and it was so hard, and I still feel so behind the grade things that people have been doing for a really, really long time, I'm still like, wait, what the fuck? How do I even do that? I mean, I'm definitely, when I think back, like I didn't know how to even just be ready, pack a lunch. Waking up was brutal, getting on some sort of schedule, it was hell on earth, but I managed to make it work. But I wouldn't really make lunch. I would just grab a couple sticks of string cheese, and then by the time lunch rolled around, I'd be starving, and like even the kids, like green pizza looked delicious. and so, you know, I created like a filing system, whereas old me, jury duty, medical bill, whatever, if it looked like responsibility or something that would stress me out, I would just throw it in the trash. So I've been like working on this shit for a long time. Even after the bike wreck at 60 something days sober, I kept working with my sponsor. I still went to meetings and still do occasionally through Zoom. But I went and I made my amends to my family for the most part, except I didn't speak to my dad, and I didn't speak to Heidi. But I pretty much went and had a conversation with everybody else and just express, you know, my regret over things that had happened. And I wanted to just let them know that, you know, talk is cheap. I just want to let you know and acknowledge that I'm sorry that I harmed you. And I hope that I can continue showing up for you as a sibling, as a sister, and essentially live out that living amends. I didn't ever talk to my dad about it, though. I didn't talk to Heidi, because with them, there was money involved. You know, my dad got me out of debt. He paid for a bunch of stuff, whether it was making sure I didn't get stuck with an ambulance bill, or Heidi letting me live in like every major city. I lived with her in North Park. She gave me a place to stay in San Francisco. She helped me get hired at 3 different jobs. Heidi was like the parent of my family, when I really think about it. She was the one that got the abuse to stop when we were in high school. She's the one that called the police. And she's still considered like the angry one, the drama queen of our family, but in my mind, she's also one of the more honest ones, because, you know, Jose, he molested all of my siblings except for me. Sorry, this is a lot of information, but Heidi was the one that, when Cammie was young, my mom was still having parties at the house, she would have Jose over, because Jose worked for French Gourmet. He'd bring desserts, and this was all information that was communicated to my mom and my dad, and my mom was just so militantly angry, like denial, and my dad didn't want to upset my mom, and so my dad expressed concern at different points, and Jose lived with us for so many years. I don't even know, like at least probably 15 years. And it wasn't until I went to rehab that I wrote a letter to my family just saying, hey, you know, I just want to acknowledge that like certain things have been really bothering me about the way the whole family approaches certain topics of conversation. You guys act like we didn't have anything bad happen in our childhood. Shelly, you say forgive and forget. But here's what I remember. I can't keep pretending like the past didn't happen. And I went into like specific detailed times in which, you know, my dad beat the shit out of Shelly in the hallway, or my mom challenged Heidi to fist fights, or deprived her of clothes during wintertime, or how they put a padlock on the fridge, or the stuff with Jose, knowing at least Shelly and Heidi got molested by him. And Charlie reacted really strangely. He was very, very angry. And months later, and the whole family pretty much, not a single person was like, oh yeah, good job. They were all like, nah, you have problems. Whatever. I read it from rehab. I was trying to like do my best to acknowledge certain things that have happened to me, and also take responsibility for things that I did that I can no longer change, but also just being honest for me was like really starting to reflect on what was causing me to want to escape certain feelings. And so, you know, before we can heal from certain traumas, we have to first acknowledge that they happened. My whole family meeting up for breakfast or for a birthday, and hearing Shelly and my dad chit chat about high school, and my dad and her having a laugh, and my dad saying, oh, you know, I was kind of hard on you kids, or I was pretty tough on you, and them laughing like dismissively, as if my dad wasn't 6'2", as if he didn't punch Shelly in the face and throw her up against the wall after she was 13 and brought home drunk by the police. I was the one left frozen in the hallway watching the whole thing. And, putting a padlock on the fridge isn't normal. But shortly after rehab, Charlie texted me and he's like, I keep having these dreams. He's like, I don't know what happened, but the stuff with Jose, he's like, I think something happened to me too. He's like, but I can't remember. But he's like, I know it was bad. Sorry. And so I was like, you motherfucker. I was like, no wonder he was mad. Charlie's a grumpy little bugger. I don't really know what Charlie and Vanessa remember, but, Heidi's the one that gets the most shit for being the one that was honest about a lot of stuff. And she was the one that finally got them to stop being abusive. They still made threats, but, my dad would say horrible shit to us all the time. He'd threaten to knock our teeth out. My mom would do sick shit. She would I wouldn't be surprised if she literally would write down things that we would do wrong. And her big threat was like, just wait till your father gets home. Knowing my dad would get off shift from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. or 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. So tired that if we did anything wrong, like, if you did something wrong, you're getting the shit beat out of you. But my mom, like, I remember her eyes would, like, glitter, Aaron. Like, she looked forward to it. Like, oh, just wait. There's something sadistic about the woman. Okay, be a break, hold on. Sorry, hold on. Don't. These things will kill you. A habit I picked up while running a homeless shelter. It was my positive reinforcement. Okay, Pam is killing me. So after that, I was like, bitch, if I ever kill myself, you better believe I'm gonna fucking take you out with me, Jose. After finding out Charlie got molested by Jose too, I saw him a few more times. He got married. My dad helped arrange that he get citizenship by making sure that he found some woman that was willing to be paid money, which is, something that is completely fucking illegal. I don't know what would happen if he got caught being a part of that, but, my parents are no angels. It was through my mom that I found out my dad was declaring her relatives in Mexico on his taxes, getting money for them. And, and one thing I left out is Jim Poy, his accountant. So he now is dying of Alzheimer's. And, but I know for a fact that my dad has been loopholing it up, which I can't really fully hate on him for, but I know these things about my parents because I just noticed them. Anyway, God, where the hell was I? I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I just lost my train of thought. Oh, okay, well, perfect time to throw in the fact that while I was living in Poway, I went through a lot of stuff. I went through rape and robbery trial and got diagnosed with PTSD, was prescribed Xanax by my psychiatrist. It was a miracle drug. But PTSD lays dormant. It can lay dormant. I didn't know that. I had been raped, robbed, whatever, and then one of my best friends died. I got a message that he died, and next thing I know, I was dealing with a friend's death, but I was waking up in the middle of the night, and my heart rate was like over 200 beats per minute. Felt like I was having a heart attack. And the smallest sound in the garage after work, my brain immediately thought it was an intruder. They were breaking in. They were already in the garage. They were going to rape me, kill me. It was absolutely a living nightmare. I would call Mikey hysterically crying, telling him I'm not sure if I should call the police. But in working with a PTSD specialist, like, I found out, it's just residual effects of trauma, having gone through the rape or whatever, the attack thing that happened to me, in which the guy, my assailant, I was 29, he was 20, and he robbed me, and he even stole my clothes, but he ended up getting caught. And the cool thing is that I ended up with a really amazing group of people on my team. I call them my dream team. District Attorney Betsy McClutchy, Detective Frank Bradley, Sheriff Deputy Nancy Dodd, and I don't know if you know a lot of this, so there's still a lot of catching up. This is gonna be like a long ass message, but after my trial, my assailant, he decided to represent himself as his own attorney. I literally cried I agonized over the fact that they could have given this guy 3 strikes, because they were trying to also charge him with false imprisonment, which is like kidnapping. And so, like, I wrestled with how hard do I want to be on this guy. Like, he could be sent away for life. I made a lot of mistakes in my 20s, granted, not rape, but they ended up charging him with rape and second-degree robbery, and he got sentenced to 12 years in prison. So he was released last year. While seeking the help of the PTSD specialist, I was put on Xanax for the horrible anxiety. I don't remember the term, but I still deal with things now, probably for life, as a result of having PTSD. So stressful things that used to be just stressful are compounded like times 4 for me. So it's a lot harder for me to get certain things done because I can get really overwhelmed. Yeah, I'm all over the place. So that's a thing. And then also, while I was living in Poway, I went through electroshock therapy. And I had gone to Mesa Vista. It may have been it wasn't during the rape, it was after the rape and robbery trial was completed. I was going through something. It's probably, I don't remember specifically what it was, but I'm going to Mesa Vista, and the head of the ECT department came, and he like really highly recommended, seeing that I've been in and out of the psych hospital so many times. He's like, you probably have treatment-resistant depression. Mind you, I had no idea that I was a high-risk candidate for electroshock therapy. I've been in 2 major bike wrecks that involved head trauma, and had done a shit ton of drugs, and I was literally on drugs when they proposed this to me. I was taking a medication called Vyvanse that was an FDA-approved medication for binge eating disorder. I hadn't gone through eating disorder treatment yet, and I was terrified of gaining weight, and so I was having Mikey literally sneak me in these pills, and the hospital knew that I had a drug history, but they didn't properly screen me. They showed me some like informational video, which funny enough I stole, and I agreed to do a bunch of ECT treatments. So I don't even know how many I did. I think I did 5 while I was inpatient for like, I don't remember if it was a few weeks or a few months. And then there were a few that my parents drove me to. And my behavior during that time was like out of control, weird. I was popping the Vyvanse like crazy, and it was really impacting my memory. I remember noticing some pretty serious things, and I didn't even remember this until I found it a few years ago. But during the times that I had ECT, I had kept a journal, and I think it was after my 3rd electroshock therapy treatment, I started to get really concerned. I wasn't remembering the nurses' faces, the nurses' names, people that I'd interacted with for so many years. But I was told the paperwork was like, yeah, there's, generally speaking, people will have problems with memory. As far as when you're going through ECT, it'll affect your memory around the time that you're having the electroshock therapy, but everything else will return to normal. That hasn't been the case for me. I live with a permanent memory disorder now. I have something called autobiographical amnesia. After electroshock therapy, I literally lost blocks of time from my brain. I had gone through the rape trial. I was going to go to my best friend's funeral, and I think I went to the funeral, but then after that I had the shock treatment, and I remember checking my social media account and just seeing all these messages from people that I had no idea who they were. And I was like, what the fuck? I was still working at Poway Unified. I go to the dollar store, and someone ran up to me, someone that I'd never seen before in my life, or so I thought, and he'd just be like, hey, Jessica, how's it going? Aaron, I had no fucking clue who they were. I would rack my brain. Do I know them from work? Do I know them from what? And I could not remember who they were, and I didn't know what the hell was going on. And so once I realized, like, I don't know what I was thinking at the time. I don't remember at what point I realized it was the permanent memory loss from electroshock therapy, but I just tried to figure out ways around it. If I ran into someone that I didn't recognize at the store, I would just try to pretend like I knew them, and then try to get them to say something that would like cue me into how I knew them. But in reviewing all these messages on social media or looking at phone numbers on my phone, despite the fact that people were like, oh, you know, I miss you so much, I couldn't remember them. They were gone. And so I just deleted numbers. I didn't bother replying. What would I have said anyway? But I would be having a conversation or be having a thought, and I'd realize, oh my God, I don't have that word anymore. Certain words were just gone. I remember the big word that was like, oh my God, I can't remember that word. I had to relearn the word refrigerator. I'd be having a conversation with Mikey, talking about going to the grocery store, and maybe I was saying like, oh, but we don't have enough room in the... And I won't know that I lost a word until it comes up in a conversation, and then my brain will like search for it, and it's just no longer there. And so, in realizing all this stuff, I'd have to tell Mikey, okay, what's the square thing you put cold food in, and then there's the top part that's a freezer, what's the whole thing called? And he'd say refrigerator. And so I'd have to recommit it to memory. Autobiographical amnesia is where you forget events, people. I forgot almost every single concert I've ever been to. And semantic memory is a fucking nightmare for me. Let me just show you. So this is my room right now. Sorry, it's like I don't know how to film this stuff. This is a hotel room, by the way. These are bins from my car. I never really know what is in my car, what is at the house, at my parents' house, or their prison by the sea, as I call it. But I knew effort is to just make everything clear, shipping labels, because literally I can put, let's say that's a cooler. I just got that cooler, but let's say it's something else. It's just a bag. Let's say I put markers in that bag. Put markers in the bag, keep markers in that bag, and then I just say, oh, you know, these markers fit in this bag much better. And I replace the markers and then put, I don't know, bobby pins in there. Or let's say hardware stuff. Pliers, hammer, whatever. I go to that bag, my brain now just has it permanently associated with the markers. I cannot reassign that bag to a different object now. That has just become marker bin. So welcome to my living hell, because let's say you're getting something for luggage. Gym bag, whatever. Most of it's not clear. And so trying to adapt to having a memory disorder, living with PTSD, and all this stuff has been hell. And moving back with my parents, the PTSD followed me there. I was terrified if I heard sounds outside the window. Mind you, it's very strange the way this works. I have no say in the matter, but I was attacked in a public place, and yet I have no fear of public places. But for me, certain spaces inside, indoors, or just environments are cripplingly, terrifyingly, paralyzingly scary for me. My parents' house was very, very triggering, worse than Mikey's. And so when I first moved back in with them, they were very hostile. My dad was pretty much, well, like, you fucked things up with Mikey. We need, like, just like we knew you would. I'm like, fuck me. And Mikey was really evil in the way he broke up with me. He started getting really manic all the time. He was really moody. He started blaming me for all his problems. He became, like, emotionally abusive. And so thank God he broke up with me, really. But he was there for me through a lot of stuff. You know, this is someone I thought I was going to marry. And I was absolutely devastated when when I came home one day and he had placed everything that I own in the driveway, and he broke off keys and all the locks to the house. And he went so far as to tell his parents that I was engaging in criminal activity. He tried to get his parents to turn against me, and that pussy ass bitch motherfucker never even talked to me, never saw me again, blocked me on everything. But he broke off keys to the locks to the house. I could hear the bird inside, and that killed me. It still makes me really sad to think about, but he fucked me over hard. He knew that I had no place to go. And when the neighbors had already been on high alert that Mikey had been done with me. I don't know what he said to the neighbors. I don't really care. Mikey started doing some really gnarly shit, but he was there for me. His family was there for me. But in the end, like, he really fucked me over the way he broke up with me. He did so with the intention of, like, hurting me, trying to hurt me. I stopped playing by his rules. Like, I started hanging out with guys. I wouldn't answer the phone. He started blowing me up. I wouldn't reply. He started just becoming really controlling. He needed to go to his parents' house all the time. I didn't want to go with him. I started doing things that were more congruent with things that were making me happy. And I started saying, you know, fuck this. I was sacrificing too much. And he was just miserable. And he was so like an old person. Like, wanting to go to the same place all the time, same restaurants. I was like, fuck that. I miss the beach. And so I started pushing back. And that's what led to us breaking up. But he got his parents on board. The neighbors saw me, like, I was so pissed. I was really upset. It was super, super hot out. I was trying to kick in the gate to get to the back so I could get to the bird and get water. And the neighbor called Mikey's parents. Mikey's parents lived within like a mile block radius of the house, which is kind of creepy. But they already bought Mikey's house. Later, I found out, you know, it's because they didn't think he was like independent enough to live on his own. So it was kind of to help him, but also to kind of look out for him. Because when Mikey was manic, or when he went off his meds, whatever, he was a whole other person. He could be suicidal. He could go on gambling sprees, which his dad bailed him out of. He tried to kill us a few times, driving off the freeway. But my parents' mind, like Mikey's family, saved me. And when I eventually stopped working for Power Unified, it was like, oh, well, you fucked that up. And Mikey's parents, they ended up coming down from the house, and I made the mistake, Aaron, of telling them, hey, I'm Jessica, I'm a recovering meth addict. I'm still living by all the things I learned in AA, which is better be honest. And so I was very forthright. His dad was conservative. He was a retired military pilot, and he worked for General Atomics, helping, create weapons of something involving drones and really smart people stuff. I don't like the way I look like. But conservative. And his mom, very conservative as well. So, but I was honest. I was like, yeah, you know, whatever happens, like, I'm not doing meth anymore, so I have no problem saying I was a meth and a thief and whatever. Holy shit, did I end up getting my ass handed to me when I was in Poway, and I was, you know, doing the whole honesty is the best policy thing. And from the beginning, like, Mikey's parents, after that, they were kind of like, you know, not, like, nice to meet you, but I knew that was always gonna be a red flag. I didn't really know that, but it definitely showed up in the end. Because the second Mikey was like, you know what, she's engaging in criminal activity. That's literally what he said. When I thought about it, I'm like, if someone's committing a crime, you specify. You say they're selling themselves for sex, they're selling drugs. You don't say they're committing crimes. So I'm like, you're not even a fucking good liar. You're a punk ass little bitch. He was literally probably hiding at his parents' house. His parents drove down. His dad, these are people, Aaron, that our families met. They liked each other. I celebrate holidays with them every holiday. We went to his parents' house like twice a week. And they came down, they saw all my shit in the driveway, including everything, you name it. It was like trash. Stuff for work, my files, jewelry, it was everywhere. His dad was like, you're out of here. Like, get the fuck out. Like, time to take out the trash. And his mom, she's like, you know, can we help you pack some of the stuff? Like, it's probably just better if we, you know, just get you going. it's getting late, you know, it's better to do it in the day. And she looked and she said, have you started trying to call the homeless shelters yet? And I'll never forget, though, there were certain things about his mom. His mom paid attention to things and she cared, but their family had a very fucking weird dynamic. There was a time that I called his mom. I notified his psychiatrist because he would do scary shit. I would wake up and there would be a full page torn ad of the newspaper, a gun ad, where Mikey had set an appointment and he'd been threatening to kill himself or whatever. He had bought a bunch of guns. I reached out to his mom and like in a panic, like I don't know what to do. And she came over at a different point in time. She took all the guns. I don't know what she did with them, but I put money on it that she never communicated that to his dad. Mikey got really into weed. At a certain point in time, he started collecting guitars, and we worked opposite hours. I would get off work, I'd be exhausted. I was going to bed at like 9, and Mikey would get home and he would he'd smoke weed, he'd plug in his amps and his guitars, and he would blast music, and it infuriated me. I needed to work in the morning, and he would be manic, he'd be fucking high, and it made me crazy. I would scream at him. And sometimes I get so desperate, I need to get sleep, I have to go to work in the morning, so I would go and I try to sleep in my car. Mikey would fucking like run out and like pan on the windows like a child. He got a kick out of it. So I'd have to like drive blocks away from the house. But Mikey, I also went through a lot together. He lost a best friend, I lost a best friend. He was there for me through eating disorder treatment. He visited me in rehab. Like, he had my back, and his family, had it not been for his family, I never would have even applied for the job at Poway Unified. I did really well in Poway because I was in a supportive environment, and I was away from all the people that knew about all the, you know, the years of wreckage, the pain that I caused my family, and I let that identify him. I let that, you know, shape the person I thought I was. And I've come a long way since there, but it's been a fucking hell of a hard thing to have been through what I've been through, to see how, you know, how selfish I was for so long, and to not be able to go back and change anything. But my best solution is to keep moving forward and just not to live the same way. That's the only way that I can really make things right, because I can't change the past, but I know what I do now. And God, I coined a phrase where I suffer from compassion compulsion fatigue, where anything I do too much for other people. So yeah, but there was a moment in time when I looked his mom in the eye and I said, Isabel, you know what he's doing. He's using you guys as a pawn because he's upset with me, because he knew that that's all he needed to say, that Jessica's doing drugs or whatever. And I'm like, you know that this is wrong. And I saw the look in her face. I knew that she believed me. But either way, they had me pack all my shit. My car was filled from top to bottom, and I knew where to go. I spent just 2 or 3 days in Poway alone, bawling my fucking eyes out, devastated. I was like absolutely crushed, completely blindsided. And I reached out to everyone I knew, including Taylor. She fucking, who knows where she was. But I can look back and go, holy shit, you know, the people, I don't remember who I was close with at the time, but, you know, going through the breakup with Mikey ended up causing me to reach out to 2 people that I barely even knew. And they were 2 people that I'm still friends with today. One of them is still one of my very best friends. So, you know, it's not all a veil of tears. So moving back to La Jolla, the weird dynamic with my parents, that was just a thing that was annoying, but I just made sure to always have a job. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to record the second half in another point in time because I'm developing laryngitis, but all right, this is a lot of information, but it's been a while since we talked, so I want you to give you the whole gamut of what's going on in Best of Fun and Sunniness. Love you.